Hey y'all, it's Ashley Nicole, and typically we're just kicking it, we're having a lot of fun, we're laughing, we're joking around, and we're still going to do that on this channel, but this episode will be about domestic violence. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I felt that it was important to spotlight this issue. I don't think it's talked about enough. I don't think that 1 month is enough either, but I felt the need to use my platform to help people. I said we were going to dig deep. I said we were going to face our fears and our challenges. Everything wasn't always going to be happy and laughing. And this is it, y'all. So this isn't my story to tell. I am not a domestic violence survivor. However, I came across 4 wonderful women who have inspiring stories that are meant to empower and let you know that through strength, you can survive even things that happen with your parents, your spouse, people that you feel will love you the most. So it's a 2-part series, you guys. The first 2 people you're going to meet are Tia and Courtney. Tia was raised in the church. She was a PK kid like me, but her life was so much different. She suffered domestic violence at the hands of her parent, who was also a pastor. So that's different, right? Like, that blew my mind right there. And then we have Courtney. She fell in love very young, and she was very trusting and, naive, and she's sharing her story. And through these stories, I hope that someone will get help, that someone will know that someone else went through this and that there was a happy ending, that there is a way out, and that abuse is never okay, and that you should never be silenced to something that you've been through, because nobody can tell your story better than you. Okay? At the end of this video, there will be a number for the domestic violence hotline. If you feel that you need to use it, please do. And hey, listen to Tia and Courtney as they tell their story and see what you can gain from it. It's real, y'all. Tia's up first.
Hi, my name is Tia Payne, and I wanted to share a little bit about my story and how I grew up. I grew up in a household where my father was a preacher at the church we attended, but he was also an abuser when we got home. There were times that we would go to church and we would sing and we would praise, and then when we would come home, we would find out everything that we did wrong. And that would be coupled with some punches and some smacks and some yells and screams and some name calling. So for years, we went through that with my father. I remember a time where I used to pray because my parents were separated for so many years due to domestic violence, which I didn't know at the time. But I used to pray and ask God, please bring my father home. Please bring my father home. And I can clearly remember the day my mom came and told me that she and my father were getting back together and he would be coming back home. And at the time, he lived in Columbus. So a few days passed, and then my father came home, and I was excited. And I was like, wow, at 9, I felt like God had answered my prayers. So my father comes home, and for a few months, everything was great. I felt like we had a normal family at that point. And I can clearly remember it was like the atmosphere in our home suddenly shifted. It wasn't light and airy anymore. It was like real heavy. And, at the time we didn't understand. We didn't know what was going on. It was different. It was just different. And so I remember this one particular day, we had walked to school, and we grew up fighting, for lack of a better word. It was 7 of us, so we did a lot of fighting growing up. And I remember this one particular day. It was my older brothers. I had they're twins, and I remember they gathered all of us younger kids, to include my cousin, up at the end of the day, and they said, we just need y'all to get home. It's supposed to be a big fight. We want to make sure y'all safe. And so we were always cliquish, and so we always stuck together. And so I felt, I was a little upset. Like, why do we got to go home? This is not how we normally do. And I was probably 10, maybe 9 or 10. it was soon after my dad came home, and I don't think I had a birthday yet, so I was probably still 9. And so I remember I walked very, very slowly home, thinking like, oh, it is what it is. I'm gonna just walk as slow as I can so I can see some action. However, I still got to the house first before any of my brothers and sisters did. And I remember I walked in and it was like a stillness in the air. And I didn't know what was going on at the time. But I remember my father, he came into the room, like maybe off the kitchen, and he said, "Where's everybody at? Y'all know y'all supposed to come home together." So I'm trying to explain to him, what had happened, and, my older brother's trying to hurry us along. And so he told me to go upstairs. So I went upstairs, and I was probably upstairs 20 minutes or something like that. And the next thing I knew, I just heard screaming and I heard yelling. And I remember I ran downstairs and all I saw was my cousin, because she lived with us at the time. I saw my cousin literally fly across the room and hit the wall. And it was like she just slid down the wall and she just laid there. She didn't move. It just kept going on. It wasn't as if anybody stopped and was wondering what happened. No one stopped. And so I'm standing on the steps kind of watching everything go on. I'm seeing him punching, and it just kept going on. It wasn't as if anybody stopped and was wondering what happened. No one stopped. And so I'm standing on the steps kind of watching everything go on. I'm seeing him punching, and and so it was like my brain trained on, let me get to my cousin, let me find out if she's okay. And so I remember I ran over there and I began to cradle her and, scream her name like, "Please wake up, please wake up, please wake up." And out of nowhere, it was like I heard this enraged scream. And then I just felt intense pain, like just hit my face all up through here. And then it was just blood pouring everywhere. It was all over me. It was all over my cousin. And I was kind of stunned, like what just happened. My mind was still trying to make sure my cousin was alive. Like, is she okay? And I remember my mom pulling on me. And when I kind of got out of the fog that I had got into, I started hearing. And so I heard my father screaming, "You never check behind me. I'm the man of this house. You don't check behind me. You don't check to see if somebody I done had to discipline is okay." And so my mom is pulling me, and she finally pulls me away from my cousin. And looking back on it now, I've always thought it was so strange that no one cared that my cousin was kind of just knocked out on the floor. It was like no one paid any attention. My mom's focus was getting me upstairs. My dad was mad. And so she rushed me upstairs to the bathroom where she was trying to clean up my face. And it was swollen and painful, probably broken. I don't remember, but it wasn't as if I was going to get taken to the hospital to see to this, this damage that had been done. And so I remember just kind of walking around in the fog. I don't remember when my cousin came to. I think the next time I kind of woke up out of this fog, she was laying in the bed, but she was alive. And so for weeks and weeks and weeks, I kind of walked around in this fog. Like, I think my world at that point was crushed, because it was like everything I prayed for just was kind of snatched from under me. And so we continued. We continued going to church, and we continued living life. And I seen multiple times of my father abusing my mom and my brothers and my sisters. And I think by seeing that, it really created in me a heart to really help people, a heart to speak up for people, a heart to be that victor for people when they were too scared to speak for themselves. So I started telling. I told, the authorities. I would call children's services. I would call 911. Anytime anything happened, I was making those calls of this is not okay. This is not okay. And because I was like that, it really created, a divide between my father and myself. because I always spoke up. I didn't want to accept that what I prayed for is this, and that was my child's brain telling me, um, you know, is this how my prayer, was answered, that I prayed all the time. So for years, I blamed myself for how we grew up in our home, because I felt like, this is something that I prayed for from the time I was 6 until the time he came home when I was 9. I prayed that prayer, God, please bring my father home. Like, I felt like that was my fault. So we went on for years like that. The abuse never stopped. I think finally, by the time, I had 2 older brothers, I think by the time they were old enough to fight back, things started dwindling. But the amount of mental and emotional abuse kept going. They were getting older. They were moving out of the house. So things started shifting to, my younger sister. My father never really, after that incident where he busted my nose, he never abused me physically. He would do little things to me, but not to that magnitude of abuse. It was a lot of verbal, it was a lot of mental, it was a lot of emotional. I remember times I would just be on punishment for 6 months, where I would have to stay in my room, by myself. No, the only time I could come out was for dinner. And I used to be so upset, because sometimes the members in the church would see what was going on. Sometimes the men in the church would see what was going on. And it was like no one helped us. No one, reached out. I didn't know anything about a battered women's shelter or a hotline that you could call. I knew to call 911, but back then, at almost 42, as a teenager back then, it was all about, the family unit staying together. No one is being arrested. They'll tell you to go to a different room and cool off. That's how children's services was. They wanted to keep the family unit together. Domestic violence didn't really have a big name. It's still a very taboo subject. A lot of times people don't talk about it. But it was more so back then that no one is talking about these things. People are hiding these things. And at that time, it was like, don't have church attached to it, because the church is definitely not talking about it. So one of the hashtags I use to this day is "it happens at church too." People are very surprised when I tell my story, and they're like, oh my God, stuff like that happened to people at church. And I'm like, we go to church, but we're still normal people with normal lives. It's just one of those things that's hidden even more because it has the church tag attached to it. So what I did on my journey of healing, not only did I repeat the cycle, but I created an organization called Legacy 31, where I decided that I wanted to do a lot of outreach to the faith-based community. So I have a faith-based organization where I go out and I do trainings. I talk about spiritual abuse and how that affects someone in that situation. I give, pastors and the leadership, I give resources on local areas of numbers you can call, hotlines you can call, shelters that you can call. I do all of that because when I was repeating the cycle and I was in that situation, I didn't get the counsel of, I need you to get to freedom. I need you to get to safety. I was given the counsel that you should just submit a little bit more, that you should pray, that God will work that situation out. And I tell people all the time, I have a relationship with God, and I'm a firm believer that God can turn any situation around. But I'm also a firm believer that God did not place anyone in a situation to consistently be abused and think it's normal for this to happen to me because I'm a wife or I'm a husband. That's not God's design for your life. And because that was my story, and that was what I believed I couldn't get a divorce, that, I wasn't going to be pleasing to God, and he wasn't going to love me anymore. So I planned on staying in my abusive marriage because my relationship with God was so very, very important. And this is what I was taught growing up. And I became an advocate, and I started working in the field so I could learn what it was to help others raise my voice. So through all of that, I've been able to really work within my organization, Legacy 31, to really do some outreach, to really have some speaking engagements where I talk about it. I no longer cry about my story. I believe who better to have went through what I went through, because I use my voice now for empowerment purposes. I use my voice now for educational purposes. I want people to understand that these things do happen at church. These things do happen in, this family, and it happens in that family. That abuse is not that thing that looks at, a poor person and say, oh, I'm going to attach myself to this family. That's not how abuse works. Anybody can be involved in an abusive situation and have no idea how to get out. And so that's why I use my voices, because I want to give you those tools and I want to give you those resources. And I definitely want to give those tools and resources to people who, like me, has that relationship with God, and based off of how you were raised and whatever church that you're raised in, they might teach you something that they believe is true, but it's strictly based off of false information. And I never want anybody to experience that. I'm going to my leadership in church to receive help, to receive some direction, and they send me away telling me I should submit some more and I should pray some more. I never want that to be another person's story like it was my story. And so that's why I talk. That's why I tell my story. That's why I empower with my story. My story is no longer shameful. My story is no longer one of those things I try to hide. Every October for Domestic Violence Awareness Month, you're going to see Tia Payne, and she's going to talk. And she's going to tell you something about domestic violence. I'm going to give you some facts. I'm going to tell you it happens at church too. I'm going to tell you all those things so I can bring awareness to this silent, deadly thing that happens over and over and over again because we choose to stay silent about it. So you're going to hear everything Tia Payne has to say when it comes to telling these stories. I believe the louder our voices are, I believe the more we are talking about it, the more we are consistently putting out that education, I believe we have the ability to change what is known as domestic violence.
Okay, so this was really, really difficult because I talk about it, but I don't talk about it. If somebody ever asks me, about my story, I'll tell them, but I don't really get in depth. So this has been a long emotional project, for me this week. So, my name is Courtney. I am 32, and I am also a domestic violence survivor. I was 19, and I was working on a military installation, and I met this guy the day after Valentine's Day, 2007. Just graduated high school, May of 2006, was still kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do, so I was home going to community college. He was older. First red flag was he lied about his age. Should have known better. But he was charming. He was so charming. And he was sweet. And he was respectful. And he was mature. And he had things going on in his life. And I'm like, you know what? Let me try to rise to the occasion so that, he'll like me, really, really like me, and we'll be able to do something. So about March, he was getting ready to leave to go back to his duty station, which was in Norfolk, Virginia. We, I don't even remember how the conversation happened, but we talked about getting married so I could move with him and the benefits because he was in the Navy and my family's Army. So I kind of knew how everything went. And some people call it contract marriages or whatever. But he's like, it's not going to be like that. It's not going to be a contract marriage. We're going to actually be married. I think I'm ready to do this. And I'm like, okay. So I say nothing to my parents. I get off work one day. He picks me up. We go right down to the courthouse and we get married. So we're married, and it comes to be June, and he's like, okay, look, I'm getting ready to leave. Are you coming with me? What's going on? Now, mind you, my parents despised this man because I was 19. Initially, he lied and said he was 23, but he had really just turned 26. So there's quite a bit of an age gap there. And my parents were just like, what does this grown man want with you? Somebody that lives at home with their parents, barely has a car at this point. You work and you go to community college. What does this man want with you? He's way older than you. He has a child with someone else. He's lived a little bit of life. He's transitioning into his 30s and you're barely ready for your 20s. What does this man want with you? And, being a 19-year-old girl, you're like, whatever, you think you got it figured out. Your mama hating. That's what I thought. My mama's hating. She didn't want me to be happy, whatever. So And it's like a week before he's scheduled to leave. And I'm thinking to myself, do I leave home and go with my husband? Because now he's my husband. Do I leave and go with my husband, or do I stay here and just, live my life and just have this long distance type marriage thing? Of course, the blind leading the blind. I spoke to one of my friends, and she's like, "No, you're married now. You have to live with your husband. Like, that's like a no-no if you don't live with your husband." And like, even got to the point of like quoting scripture about, man and wife, and the woman leaving her family to be with her husband to build a new, like it. I I shouldn't have listened to her. I should have just went with my own mind, because my mind was like, "Don't go," but my heart was like, "You love this man, the lust and infatuation portion of everything, where it's just butterflies and rainbows and just wonderful goodness." So, excuse me. So it was like just great, But my mind was like no, and my heart was like go, and I followed my heart and I went. I told my mom the week before I was leaving that I had gotten married, because no one knew. No one knew. I told my dad, my stepdad. My family was so mad at me. They were so angry. And my mom told me, at this point, whatever happens to you because you're making your own decisions and you're grown. Stand on that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, no problem. I'm grown. So I get to Virginia, and the abuse didn't start right away. He was already established there. He had a car, he had an apartment there, by himself, and things were just set up for him. So he's like, we have to start looking for a place, and we have to do this, and we have to do that. And I'm 19. I don't have any credit. I'm not working. I don't have anything. So whatever he says at this point goes. But he's making sure that I'm comfortable. Again, being 19, I don't have anything. So I moved to a new city, a new state. I have an apartment now and a car, and he bought me a brand new car, and, just everything. And then like 6 months later, we buy a house. So now I'm really thinking like life is grand. And up to this point, there was no indication that he would ever be abusive. He was just always so charming. Like that was the thing that just had me like just in awe of him, is that he was just extremely charming. So we never had an argument. He never really raised his voice to me either. Now that I think about it, he never really got loud with me. If it was something that we didn't agree on, he was always like, okay, well, let's talk about it. What are we gonna do? And I didn't know anything about compromise at 19, so I'm being a brat and throwing fits and, just typical teenage type stuff. So now we get to almost 1 year anniversary. So it's my birthday in January, and I don't remember where I went. I went to go visit a family member, because I have family in Virginia. It was either my aunt or my dad. I can't remember. And I used to go visit my dad a lot, because my dad lived in Northern Virginia. So I'm not working. I'm not in school. I'm not doing anything. He's taking care of me. I have money in my pocket. I have a car. I might as well go do something with myself, So I'm somewhere, either my dad or my aunt, and I'm visiting. And my neighbor calls me, and she tells me like, I'm not exactly sure if you guys have family in town or what, but there's been a woman that's been staying at your house for the past couple of days while you've been gone. Like, she came the same day you left. And I don't know, like, I just wanted to confirm with you, because it just doesn't seem right. So I'm just like, maybe it was a friend, one of his friends or whatever. He had female friends, and I knew them. I was cool with them, or thought I was at least. And I don't know everything. I just didn't know what to think or what to believe. So instead of calling him, I just popped back up in my house. So as I'm there, there's another car in my driveway. I don't know whose car this is. Never seen this car before in my life. So the way that the house was set up is the driveway is here, and then the house is like on top of the driveway. So I'm putting my code in to get in my house, and I can't get in my house. So I'm like, okay, maybe something's wrong. So I'm putting it in. You put it in so many times, it sets off the alarm. So it set off the alarm in the house. So he comes out of the house, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm trying to put the code in the garage so that I could come in the house, because we never used the front door. It was just go through the garage and come in the house. So he's like, why didn't you just come through the front door? I'm like, we never go through the front door. So that was red flag number 2 outside of the neighbor calling me. So he's stalling me to get in my house, like just talking to me outside and, hey, let's do this, let's do that. What do you think about doing this to the house? And like showing me things on the outside of the house. So I don't know if he gave her the bat signal or whatever he did, but she ends up, the woman that he had in my house ends up walking through the garage to get to her car. And we're standing on the steps in front of the house, and you can look over and see the garage. And, you know, it's a typical cheating blow up. Oh, who is this? What's going on? Cussing, arguing, going back and forth. And I'm 19. Well, at this time, I'm 20. And I am just in my ratchet ghetto, bleep this, bleep that, bleep, bleep, bleep. And I'm just like laying into him, and you ain't nothing, and blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, I'm picking myself up off my lawn because he has slapped me into the grass. And I just didn't know what to do. I didn't cry. I think I was more so, I was shocked. I was shocked that he was cheating. Because I would never, you couldn't pay me to think that he was doing anything to me, because we were happy, as far as I know. But he slapped me onto the ground, and she kind of just stood there and grasped her mouth and just kind of stood there, and he didn't stop. He waited for me to get up, and he slapped me again. So this time I'm holding on to the rail of the front steps. So I start to walk away. I go get in my car. I try to drive away. He's standing behind my car. And everybody's like, you should have just hit him. You should have just hit him. But everything happened so quick. It was like, what happened? I'm in my car. I'm still processing what happened. And for whatever reason, I wasn't scared. I was just like, what happened? Like, I don't know what happened. Like, it was a lot of things at one time. So he doesn't let me leave. He opens up my car door. He takes me into our house, and he's like, you're not leaving me. We're going to talk about this. And I'm like, we're going to talk about this. Like, he slapped me so hard the second time my nose was bleeding. So I'm like, look at my face, look at my shirt. I'm bleeding because you slapped me so hard, and you want to have a compromise moment right now of let's talk. No. So again, ghetto ratchet loud me going off, and I can't believe, and why would you? How could you? I'm calling your mother. Soon as I said I'm calling your mother, his body changed. The man that I was in love with left. And whoever this person was in full effect. And it went from, let's talk about this, I'm sorry. It was just reaction to, you call my mom, I'm going to kill you. And at this time, I don't know why, I'm just like so just raw. I'm like, oh, you're going to kill me? You're going to have to show me that you're going to kill me. He said, okay. My living room, from the front door, you had to go up the stairs. If you went downstairs, you were in the garage. So if you went upstairs, you were in a big living room. And if you walked straight through, there was a kitchen. You turn around, there's a bathroom, and then there's the rest of the house. So he grabbed me by the back of my neck. I had braids, I'll never forget. Grabbed me by the back of my neck with a handful of braids here and dragged me from my living room through my kitchen to the bathroom. He threw me into the tub, held me down, and just bam, 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 and just hit me so many times. I don't even know how many times he hit me, and then left me there. And I was just crying and screaming, and the only thing I could think is, he's going to go get his gun, and he's going to come back and shoot me. So I'm in the bathroom, and I'm looking around. What can I get? What can I grab? Can I take something off the wall to hit him with it? Can I How am I going to get out the bathroom? You know, bathroom is one way in, one way out. How am I going to get out of here before he comes back to try to kill me? And I don't know. I don't know what came over me. I just opened up the door, and the kitchen was here, and then our bedroom was directly behind it. And then there's the bathroom, and then you have to go around to the other side of the house. So he's in the bedroom, and I run from the bathroom down the stairs. I don't even try to get in the car. I run directly to the neighbor's house across the street, which is the same neighbor that gave me the call. And I'm just like, I need to call the police. I don't know what's going on. Like, what the hell? So my neighbor, plot twist, is like, we're not calling the police. What do you mean we're not calling the police? Like, he just beat me up. Like, we're calling the police. And she's like, no, we're not calling the police. And she's an older woman, older black woman. And she's like, you know, you're 19. You don't have anything. You know, he just bought you a brand new car. You have a brand new house. Like, you're being ungrateful right now. And I'm just like, she didn't say it like that, but she was like insinuating that I should take the abuse because I'm comfortable. And her being an older woman and also somebody that I talk to a lot, it was just like, maybe she has a point. Like, maybe this is the price I'm supposed to pay for being comfortable. Like, and in that moment, I was like, okay, I'm calling his mother though. I'm still calling his mom if we're not calling the police. She's like, yeah, but you're married, and you know what happens between you and your husband is between you and your husband. If you want to be a little girl, then, you know, call his mother and tell on him, because that's basically what you're doing. But you need to hold it together and go back and be the woman of your household. And I don't know why, if it was just me being young and 20, or me looking for some sort of something. I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know what it was, but I'm just like, okay. Like, I'm going to take her advice. I'm going to see what happens. So I run back home. He's not there. He's gone. So I'm calling. This was 07, or this was 08. So we're not really like texting like that, but like we text, but we're not texting like that. So I'm like, hey, you know, where are you? What's going on? I need you to come home. We need to talk about this. We need to discuss what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And I'm just in a panic. Like, you need to come home. So he doesn't answer the phone. He doesn't text back. He actually cuts his phone off for days. Like, he's still going to work because I'm calling up to his job to make sure that he's at work. And he's not answering my phone calls. So it was like maybe 4 or 5 days. Maybe it wasn't quite a week, but maybe like 4 or 5 days. He comes home and it's gifts. Big gifts. Purses, shoes, stuff for my house that I've been wanting, a dog, because I've been crying so much about a damn dog, and he got me the dog. And he just like showered me with gifts, and I forgave him. We didn't even talk about it. We didn't discuss it. We didn't say anything. I just forgave him, and that was it. And that was the first time that he physically put his hands on me. But there were so many times after that. And it would be over the simplest things. Like when I said that the man I fell in love with and the man that was in my house were two different people at that point, he stayed two different people at that point. He didn't go back to being that loving, caring man. He was still this cold man, but he was cold and charming. Still, even after. And me just being so caught up in, I love this man and I want to make him happy and I want to be a great wife and I want to, you know, listen to my neighbor, because, you know, marriages go through things and this is just a part of marriage and this is just my turn to go through things. But I should be grateful that this is the only thing that he's putting me through, because, again, I have a whole house. I have a 3-bedroom house. We have 3 cars and a motorcycle. I have my dog now. I don't have any kids, but he has a child, but his child's not back and forth at our house like that. I don't have to work. I don't have to go to school. I don't have to do anything, and my life is made. So maybe I should just chill out for a little while. Even with the small arguments in between. Even when he's not necessarily punching me, but maybe when he's, you know, pushing me against the wall, it's actually okay. Or maybe when he's forcibly moving me out of the way, maybe it's okay. And so I took that. I took that for a whole another year. And I can't give you a number of how many times that we had gotten into physical argument where he would hit me or beat me or push me down or slap me or whatever. And it was just so stupid. One time that I always remember in between time, he loved pork chops, fried pork chops. I was rushing because I was trying to go out with my friends. So I was rushing making dinner, just trying to get everything done. And I need to be, dressed by this time and out by this time so I can make it there by this time. So I am, I'm frying pork chops and I made his plate. It was pork chops, mashed potatoes, and corn. So I made his plate and I put it on the table and I'm like, hey, food's here. I got to get dressed. I'm going out, whatever. That was like my typical routine. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I was gone. So he sits down at the table and he's like, come here. I'm like, what? Like, I'm trying to get dressed. Like, what? And he's like looking at me like, you're really saying what? Like, you're talking to me like, okay. So he's like, look at this. And I'm like, what's the problem? So he holds the pork chop up. And on one side of it, it's not fried hard enough. So the skin is like peeling back and it's falling off. And I'm looking like, what do you want me to do? He is enraged over a pork chop. He throws a plate, calls me all types of names. Like, I'm just standing there like, what is going on? Just goes off on a tangent. Like, I don't mean to laugh about it by telling the story, but just listening to me say it and just who I am now is like, hell no. What? And no. So I get mad. I start crying. And he's like, you're crying? What are you crying for? Like, just like making me feel bad that he made me feel bad, And I go to walk away and he pushes me into the wall. Face hits the wall. Knot as big as Sunday on my head. Biggest knot ever. So I'm like, I'm about to go out and you're yelling at me and then you put your hands on me and now I have this knot on my head. So now I can't go out, but I don't want to be in the house with you because now we're going to fight. So his thing was, I would try not to say anything when we were arguing so that it didn't escalate. And if I didn't engage in the argument, it escalated anyway because now I'm not saying anything back. So I'm just like in the bedroom. I'm crying at this point. Like, what the hell is going on? And he is pissed. And I just don't understand. Like, it's a pork chop. It's literally a pork chop. And he is, he's just still going off and still mad. And the next thing you know, I just start hearing stuff break. My dog is in the cage in the living room and I just hear yip, 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 yip. It's a tiny dog. And glass everywhere. I walk out the bedroom when it finally gets quiet. And he is sitting on the back deck, which you can see from the living room, chilling. He's taken every piece of glass in my house and smashed it. Every piece of glass. Light fixture glass, the glass top to the stove because it was electric. He broke that. He broke everything that was glass in the house that wasn't the TV. Everything. My dining room table was broken. It was glass. My end tables, glass. Lamps, glass. Plates, cups, whatever you can think of that was glass, it was broken in that house. So I try to slip past the window to go downstairs to go in the garage because my car at this point is parked in the garage. And I just want to leave. I don't know where I'm going to go, but I just don't want to be in the house with him like this because I know this isn't the end of it. Usually if we get into a fight, he would leave and that's how I would know that it was the end. I wouldn't hear from him for a couple of days. And that was like the pattern. We get into a fight or we get into an argument, it would escalate to a fight. He would leave for days at a time. And then I would still call his job to make sure he was at work. And then he would just come home one day like nothing ever happened. And he always brought gifts. Anytime that we had any sort of argument, even if it didn't turn physical, even if it was just an argument, he would always bring gifts. And in my mind, because that my love language is gifts. So in my mind, I'm thinking he's loving me because although we got into an argument, he still cared enough to buy me something. And that's not, that wasn't the case. It was manipulation, severe manipulation at that. Even the buying of the house and the buying of the car, we weren't arguing at that point. We weren't fighting at that point. We weren't even raising our voices at each other at that point. But he still gave me things to manipulate me, I guess, in the beginning, so that when he continued to give me things, I wouldn't think anything of it. It would just be, oh, he's just a giving person. No, it was manipulation from the beginning. But the final straw was me getting a job. I started working on a military installation that he worked on, and at a store. And he would come see me, and he would come talk to me, and stuff on lunch or just random, just come and see me. And he'd bring flowers to my job, so everybody's like, oh, your husband, he's just so, and I would go out with my coworkers after work, and he'd pay for everybody to go out. And just, I know that at this point I was aware that it was manipulation, but I liked it, and I can't lie and say at that point I didn't like it. Not getting beat, but I like the gifts. I like the thought of this is him loving me, after he's done whatever. Okay, so I get the job, and he's not happy about it, but what can he do at this point? I've already started the job. So I'm making my own money now, and I'm starting to do my own thing, kind of. I'm not home as much because I have money now to go out. Not that I didn't before, but it's just my own money, so I'm excited, So I decide I'm going to register for school. He is not happy about it at all. So at this point, we're coming up on the 2-year mark. And I'm in school. I've been working for a few months now. Everything is everything. I'm paying my own car note and things like that. And I don't know if he just started feeling like he wasn't needed or wasn't a necessity. I don't know, but he just started doing things to like pick fights with me, like just come in and like throw stuff around, or just just little stupid stuff. And at first I didn't say anything because I knew he was trying to pick an argument. But it just came to a point where it's like, I've worked today, I'm studying, I have school, and I just really need some peace, and you are not providing the peace I need. So I was like, look, I'm going to go to my dad's for the weekend. I'll be back Monday, and I need to study. I have stuff going on. I really got to study. And he was furious that I said I was going to leave instead of asking him, like, what's wrong? Because every time I go the what's wrong route, it turns into a fight, and then we're fighting. I just didn't want to do that. I had other stuff going on at this point. So he gets going off about my job and, me going to school, and I don't need to do any of this because he takes good care of me. And, just I'm being disrespectful and I'm ungrateful. And, and then him saying that I was ungrateful took me back to the first day that we ever got into an argument, and I talked to my neighbor, and she said the same thing, like, you need to be grateful, that he's taking care of you. And then I thought about it, like, I don't have to be, like, I am grateful, thank you, but at this point it's not a necessity. I'm working, I'm doing my own thing. And not to say that, oh, I'm doing my own thing, I don't need you now, but I need you to respect my independence now, And a lot of people get it confused, thinking that when you're in a marriage, you no longer have your independence. You absolutely still have your independence. You just have to make that known and definitely discuss that with your partner. And that's something that we did not do because I didn't have it at the time. I didn't feel like I needed it. Excuse me. My friends really encouraged me to get a job. and just get out the house. Because my friends knew what was going on, but they knew I wasn't leaving either. So they gave me advice, if I needed to go with them or, stay there for a while or whatever, I had the option to do so, but they were never like, oh my God, you have to leave your husband. It's more of a, you'll get tired. Eventually you'll get tired. And that's basically what they said. And they kept it consistent. Like, you'll get tired. And I did that day. That day it was just like, I don't know if it was just I was tired from work or school. I don't know what it was, but I just like, I released, and he went off and said all the things he said, and I walked past him to go to the bedroom, and I bumped him a little bit, and I guess he took that as me like, trying him or challenging him. I didn't even realize that I bumped him until he grabbed my arm and he swung me around and he pushed me all the way back into the wall, and he just kept hitting me up against the wall, and I'm grabbing the back of my head like this so I'm not hitting the wall so I can hit my hands because it hurt. It hurt. He was much bigger than me. At that time, I'm 5'2", so at that time I might have been like 120 pounds maybe, and he was like 6'1", 6'2", like 215. He was tall. So he's forceful and he's like hitting me, So he puts me down, drags me down. He's on top of me. He's hitting me. And all I see at this point when his hand comes up is blood. So my nose is bleeding. And so I'm choking because I got blood coming out of my nose and going down my throat at the same time. So I'm choking. And I'm trying to cover myself and get up, but he's just hitting me. So he finally stops, and I'm just in the fetal position, and I'm just sitting there. I'm just crying and crying and crying. So he leaves. My neighbor from across the street sees him leave. She comes over and sees me, and to this day, I really don't know the amount of blood, but I know it was bloody because when I see his hand go up, it was like blood dripping off his hand. So she's like, your face, oh my God, your face. So she grabs me, puts me in the car, and I'm just crying, but my head is hurting so bad. I've never felt a pain like that in my life. Like, it just hurts so bad. And I just had my eyes closed and I couldn't breathe because the blood in my nose is like starting to clot in my nose. And I'm just like, I didn't think I was dying, but I was just like, if this is the end, like, just get it over with, because I'm just tired. Like, my body was just tired. Like, it was crazy. I had never felt like that before after fighting him. And we've had some situations where it's been crazy, and I was never tired like that. But my body just, like, broke down on me and was like, we're done. Like, we can't do this anymore. So, again, my mom kind of knew something was going on, but she didn't know. And my mom's not the type of person to speculate. If she doesn't have the proof, she's not going to say anything. So the hospital, they called my mom and told my mom what happened. Called my biological father because he's only 3 hours away. Told him what happened. And my mom came out, and my mom saw my face. And she told me that if she had to come back to identify my body, she wasn't going to do it. She was not going to do it. And that's the only thing she said to me. She didn't say, hey. She didn't say, how are you doing? How you feeling? She just said, if I have to come back to identify your body, I'm not doing it. And that's it. She walked out of the room. My dad came in and my dad saw me. Me and my dad had a moment, And he's just like, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't anybody say anything? And I'm just like, it became the norm for me for a while. Like, that, okay. I don't know. I guess I just stopped caring somewhere along the way. Like, this is what it is. In my life, at least. Nobody else is, but this is what it is in my life. So, of course, the police were called on him and charges were pressed and everything. And I decided at that point that I was going to go ahead and file for divorce. I filed for divorce, and he made it hard. He made it really hard. I didn't get I didn't ask for anything because I just wanted it to be over with. I just wanted it to be done. I just wanted to be able to, move and do my own thing and just be my own person. So I didn't ask for anything. And it wasn't like I was going to get anything major anyway. I mean, he had things, but it wasn't anything that was just like a must for me at that point because I was okay. I made enough money to get my own apartment. And like undercover, I was saving for that so that I could leave. But this just happened before that. So I don't know if it was a blessing or just what. But I don't know. But that was the last time that happened. They arrested him. He didn't go to jail per se. He's in the military, so they handle it the military way or whatever. He got a demotion, I know that for sure. And then like a few months later, they ended up putting him out because he had a similar incident with another woman, I guess, that he was seeing. So, yeah, so that was pretty much that. And he still tried to contact me for a while. I had a restraining order on him forever. I actually just recently, 2 years ago, stopped updating the restraining order. But yeah, I had a restraining order on him for a long time, and he would still like try to contact me, especially like when Facebook became a thing. Like, hey, how you doing? Like, do you need anything? I still had accounts that he didn't necessarily have access to, but he had like the account number, so he would like put money in the accounts and stuff like that, and I would just take the money out and put it back in his account and just be done with it because I didn't want any parts. Then eventually, over the years, he stopped contacting me. He would contact me like once a year though, just to ask if I was updating the restraining order because at that point he had like a really good government job. And I would let him know, yes, I'm still updating it, but I guess whatever clearance he had, they needed to know that information. So, yeah, that's my story. So, the signs are always there. The signs are always there. Love is very blinding, so we don't see the signs all the time, but the signs are always there. And sometimes you have to look beyond love and realize that something isn't right. And no matter how comfortable you are or how secure you feel, that's nothing compared to owning yourself, I guess I can say. Like that's nothing. All of that stuff you can do for yourself. You don't need someone to do that for you. So don't get so comfortable in the materialistic things of someone else that you lose who you are as a person and settle for whatever, you know. But yeah, that's my story. So thank you.
Want to kick it with me? Hit that subscribe button and you won't miss a